Welcome to Zimmerman Podcast, episode 67. Today, I'm sitting down with Stephanie Lang, owner of Lang Floral Design. Since 2018, Stephanie has been transforming her business from a humble side hobby into a floral powerhouse that's increased profit by 80%, allows flexible work hours, and gets featured in publications like Southern Bride magazine. Stephanie's sharing how she went from having no business goals to beating her sales goal each year, feeling confident and comfortable throughout the craziness of the 2020 wedding season, and even booking her biggest wedding yet for 2021. Stephanie is sharing the one tool that's helped her create a business better than she'd ever imagined, and why she thinks now is the best time to rebuild your business foundation. I love hearing Stephanie's story, and I can't wait for you to learn from her. This is for sure a must listen for anyone in the wedding industry feeling lost this year. All right, you ready? Let's do it.
Welcome to the Zimmerman Podcast with your host, CEO, wedding professional, educator, and mom, Jessica Zimmerman. In just 2 years, Jessica went from facing bankruptcy to taking home a six-figure salary. She turned a business-saving $100,000 loan into a $1 million empire. As a creative entrepreneur, a healthy work-life balance seems just as unattainable as a six-figure income. But Jessica Zimmerman is here to show you it's possible. With the right tools and insider tips and some hard work, your craziest dreams can become your daily routine. If you set some boundaries and commit to healthy changes, you can create a business and a life you love. So let's make your business work for you.
Welcome to the podcast, Stephanie.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited.
Oh, I'm excited you're here. Okay, tell us a little bit about you and your business.
Okay, well, I started my business, Lang Floral Designs, really just as a side hobby. I was working full time as a graphic designer, kind of in the corporate world for many years. I didn't have any kids, so I had some kind of extra time to do like a hobby and start a little business, although it was definitely more of a hobby back then. And so I started it and really started building it up and really seeing that there was a potential for me to create like a real business, not just a side hobby with it, but never really had the motivation or the time with a full-time job to do that until I had my first baby. And then, of course, that gives you motivation to do some things a little bit differently. So at that point, I quit my full-time job, and it was definitely make or break. I had to make some kind of an income somewhere. So I really put forth the effort to make this a real business. So that's where I was, several years ago.
I definitely thought this a few years ago, and I think it still rings true today. I think that there are people who, like you said, they have to have an income. They have to be a two-income family, or, maybe they are a single parent and they've got to provide money. And then there's also people who are in dual income families, and maybe they don't have to have two incomes, but as a mom, they feel like, man, if I don't do something, then what else is there of me, or what else is there? I don't know. I think a lot of women struggle with that. And so I just want to come from a place of, man, if you want to be in business because you love business and you want to do that, then by all means. But it's also totally fine to just, be at home with your baby and snuggle and enjoy all of that. I mean, the faster you can learn how to really make money with your business, the more time you get with your family and just the better it is, right?
Right. And to make good profit on each event, I started feeling like events are on weekends. So I'm away from the babies, and my husband is home with them, and he is great with them and he's so supportive. But if I'm going to be gone for 8, 10, 12 hours, sweating my butt off in a wedding,
You
I need,
want to bring home some money.
yeah, I'm good. I need to make sure that there's a bottom line there, and that I work with good clients who appreciate the work, and that I'm doing work that I love. So yeah, there's so much motivation there to have that creative outlet, but also feel like your time is being valued as well.
Gosh, that's so true, because I remember before I had kids, I would work all hours of the day and
Oh,
night.
yeah,
I
me
mean,
too.
all hours, and didn't yeah, I'm sure that you were the same, and did not bring home a dime. I'm talking not a dime. And after I had Stella, I was like, "Okay, something's got to change." There is something motivating about you have that baby and you're like, "Okay, I wanna spend all my time with you." And so I've got to either quit this business, which for me, that was not an option. Like, I just and that was just my pride. I just was like, "No, I'm not gonna be a failure. I'm gonna" but you either have to quit or you have to figure it out. And so people know this, that's what I did. I hired consultants and financial advisors and business experts, and I studied everything that I could and went to workshops, and then I had a great year, and I ended up writing about it in a program that is now called The Business Behind the Blooms. So tell me about how you heard about BBB, just kind of what business was like before BBB, and like what made you think, "Oh, I need this."
Okay, so I definitely had the motivation within me to grow this business to a point where I felt like it was an income worth being away from my children. And at that point, when I found out about you and started getting familiar with BBB, at that time I had just had my second
And when
daughter.
was this? What year was this? I'm
This
just
was
curious.
in 2018.
Okay.
So I probably found out about you about 2017, followed you on social media. And to be honest, I have no clue how I first found out about you. I don't remember.
So
Um,
okay.
I watched your webinars. I could tell that you were so knowledgeable, and I love your style. So I was learning from the floral style and just loving, just eating it all up. In 2018, push came to shove. I was like, either I'm going to do BBB or I'm not. And the doors opened to purchase it, and just kept telling myself I can't afford to do this. And so I really just got to the point I was looking at numbers in my business and thinking, "Can I afford to do this? Can I not?" And I really just felt like I couldn't afford not to do it. And it was so scary. Like, anytime you make a big purchase that you don't feel like you can just easily afford, it's just so hard. But I will tell you, and I have all the numbers. I feel like if you're a numbers person, this could help. In 2018, I bought BBB. It took me a few months to start implementing the changes in my business and booking the right kind of weddings because, I still had to book the weddings and then future do them. So I in 2019 started doing those weddings, and in 2019, the following year, I experienced 80% growth in my sales, so nearly doubled. And I actually created a sales goal for myself that year, which I had never done before. I had no business knowledge whatsoever. I didn't have goals. It was just, any weddings that I could book, I was booking them. So in 2019, I exceeded our sales goal, grew 80%. We were featured in Southern Bride Magazine that year. So it really, it took a few months to start really making changes to the way I do my proposals and quotes and really making sure I'm bringing in those ideal clients. But then as soon as I started profiting off of those, meaning, 6 months later when their wedding actually was occurring, I started feeling such a relief of, this really is making a big change in my business. And the cost of the education was with 80% growth in 1 year, the cost is negligible. It's
Right,
not that important. It's not that big.
right. Yeah. Absolutely. Oh, thank you for sharing those numbers. That is so helpful. And I think, when I first wrote BBB, I thought I'm going to write this because this is what worked for me. And I hoped it would work for others, but I just knew it worked for me. And when I started getting testimonies that I didn't even ask for, people just were emailing saying, "Hey, I booked my first wedding and got $20,000 floral order, and I've never done more than 2,000 before." I just was like, "Wow, okay, this is working." And then I kept hearing more of those and kept hearing more of those. So today, but I have to tell you today, like, that never gets old. For you to have 80% growth, it is incredible, and like you said, it is such a I get it. There were moments where every single day I woke up and I would look in my bank account and it was red, okay? Every single day. And let me tell you, when I transitioned a little bit out of floral and into now, the book and everything, there were days that I would look at that bank account and it wasn't near what it used to be, like, I understand what that is like and what that leap of faith is like to invest in something. I mean, but at the end of the day, here's what I really think. For me, I am always gonna bet on myself. I will always invest in myself because I kn like, I'm my best lottery ticket because and that's what I had to remind myself when I was publishing this book every single because money was going out, 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 and it was not coming in, and I had to just remind myself that I am my best lottery ticket, and I know that I will work harder than anyone else, and if no one else shows up to the table, I know at least I will, and so I think you really have to come in with that mindset and know that if you do the work that is in BBB, like you said, it's like the price of it is gonna be like, it's not even gonna matter because 'cause you're gonna make it back, then some and then some and then some. So, tell me what your feelings were in your business before BBB. Like, what was your mindset like, and what was business like? Was it frantic? Was there no money? Did you just kind of do things kinda willy-nilly? Like, how did it go?
Well, yes, definitely willy-nilly, I had no strategy, so I think I made the mistake, I guess, and probably most people do, that when I first started putting myself out there as a business owner and as a floral designer, I was advertising myself as the budget-friendly, affordable option, just low budget because I felt like I needed to, and I guess back then I probably did 'cause I'm self-taught. I'm a self-taught florist, but I needed to get some experience to be confident enough to and really to have the experience to do larger weddings. Before I started implementing changes that I, learned from BBB, I started thinking, well, the only way to go up in finances and sales is to work harder. And with a new baby, I was like, I don't know if I can do that. I was so terrified that the answer was gonna be doing 5 weddings a weekend and having a team of 15 people out there every single day. And, like, what I wasn't sure, I was a little scared, but I think I kinda learned a little bit about your philosophy and stuff before I hit buy, but I was kind of getting the feeling that is not she's not talking about killing yourself, she is not talking about being away from your family 60, 70 hours a week. I was terrified that because I was working my business really part-time, there would be weeks that it'd be full-time, but definitely, spending a lot of time with my kids, and I wasn't sending them to daycare full-time or anything, and still am not. Even last year with 80% growth, that didn't result in me saying, "Okay, most weeks I'm averaging like 20 25, 30 hours a week, now I'm averaging 45, 50." That's not the case. It's just that I had enough confidence in myself and my business and doing the numbers right when I'm quoting to make good profit off of good weddings going forward. So, I just got to the point where I was like before that, I just didn't know. I didn't have the business knowledge within me to know how to grow it without just working harder and putting my kids in full-time daycare and working 50 or 60 hours a week. I didn't know how. So I
Nobody wants to do that. I'm sorry I cut you off, but nobody wants to do that. You just had babies. You're like, I don't want to now up my hours and work harder, and I want to spend more time with my kids. And what you need is the answers. And I remember when I was going, for 4 years, I just everything was a question. Everything. I mean, even just, how to display something. I was like, do I display it here or here? Do I put my logo here or here? I mean, everything was there was never an answer, and the thing about it when you own your own business, everyone's coming to you with questions and wanting you to answer them, and you don't know any of them. You don't know any of the answers, and that's almost also just a frustrating place because you want to and you need to, as a business owner, you need to be confident, but it's hard to have confidence when you don't know the answers. It is really difficult. And so, what I love so much about BBB and why I wrote it is because I felt like the foundation of the wedding business, all the answers are in there. And if you can get the answers to the foundation of your business, you are able to sell so much more because I think people are attracted to confident people. I've given this example before, but if somebody is looking for a divorce attorney and they've never gotten divorced before, they go to sit down at this divorce attorney's office. They want that attorney to go, okay, here's how this is going to work, and here's what I do, and I'm good at what I do, and you want to know that your money is being spent well, and that this is a terrible example, but anyway, but that they know what they're doing. And if you go in there and you sit down and that attorney is like, "So, what are your thoughts?" Then you're like, "I'm sorry. I hired you, you know?" And so I think that that's also a big struggle that a lot of beginners have in the wedding industry is they ask their client so many questions of what they want instead of really leading a meeting and saying, "Here's how this works." And of course, asking them questions to get the answers that you need, but not asking them more than that. And I think that the sales module in there is so beneficial and helpful. So, what was the tipping point? What made you kind of dive in and go for it and go, "Okay, I'm going to buy this."
Gosh, I think I just got to the point where I could tell that I wasn't running this business like a business. I could tell that I needed some help. And I definitely with the clients, like you were saying, I definitely needed the confidence to take the reins a little bit with my clients. There's this mentality of bridezillas out in the wedding industry and that weddings are hard and you deal with bridezillas so often, but I really don't. I am so appreciative of the way in BBB you talk about dealing with your clients, with inquiries, with the sales process and stuff. It's just really straightforward to where it does not attract bridezillas. So, and let me just give an example. Like, I remember I used to get emails from brides saying, "Hey, I have a wedding coming up and I need bridal bouquet, kind of like this, and 7 bridesmaids bouquets, just cheap, and about 10 centerpieces. Can you give me just a quick quote for that?" And I would do it. Like, what was wrong with
Yeah.
me? I would just, you
Yeah.
know,
You didn't know
I
any
just didn't
better.
know
You
any
didn't know
better.
any
I
better.
just was like, "Okay, if they're gonna send me a super quick, super vague, super just not a lot of information email, I feel like I just need to kind of respond in that way, just send it real quick." And so it's so freeing now to know, like, just to to have control and be like, "Actually"
This is how our process works.
yeah,
Yep.
and the results of that are I have five-star reviews on my website and on Google, and when you read those reviews, this is what I tell my brides sometimes, not all of it is about my floral work.
Right.
You can see what my floral work is like on Instagram,
Mhm.
but you don't know what my process is like, and I experience a lot just reaching out to photographers and coordinators and wedding planners and such. I experience a lot of just professionals that aren't very responsive. They take a
Right.
long time to respond. When they do, they're real short. They're not appreciative of working with other people in the industry. And so I kind of am like, I just don't want my clients to get that feeling from me. And so when I get a thank you card back from a bride or a review online from them that says, her process from start to finish gave me no stress about my wedding, and it was very straightforward, and I knew that I could trust that at least my flowers and my decor and stuff was gonna be on point. I'm like, I just didn't have the, I guess, knowledge or confidence to make those changes in my business to where my brides not only are gonna love the flowers, but they are gonna walk away from Lang Floral Designs being like, "Dang, she's good." Like, she made this a good experience for me, and that feels so it feels so good because 'cause I planned a wedding before. I've been the bride. It's stressful.
Absolutely. I love everything you just said. I think, first of all, it kind of goes back to the I don't care what people say. I mean, even when we are buying online, we are still buying from people. There is someone behind the product or the service. People buy from people. And I think, especially in a field like weddings, when this is an emotional day, this is, a lot of money is being spent, it is really important for the person to trust who they're spending that money with. And I think when you have your stuff together and you know the exact process and you're able to set really realistic expectations for your client where they know exactly, you're able to say at the end of a meeting, okay, well, here's our next step. Here's what we'll be doing next time or whatever. Like it just goes so well. And then you're right. You don't have bridezillas. There's no need for them to be bridezillas because everything's taken care of. There's that saying, like, I'm going to butcher it, but it's something like, when you're up against the wall, like you never know what someone's capable of. And that's what happens when we feel out of control or we don't know what to expect. And I think when a bride doesn't know what's coming next or anything, then that's when that kind of panic and that fear sets in, and that's when that behavior sets in. And by just having the answers and knowing exactly the process, you are going to really be able to weed out the clients that you don't want to work with. You're going to be able to attract those ideal clients for sure.
Yeah, and I definitely have noticed too that when we've spent 6 months going back and forth with quotes and proposals and emails and meetings, when I arrive at a wedding, the bride is like when I have made a good impression on her, she's happy to see me, and, I don't know that that was happening before. Not that I wasn't, like, responding to emails and stuff, but I just wasn't as organized in any way business-wise, so I can enter the room with her flowers and know that I'm pretty confident that she's already impressed with me.
Right.
I've
Absolutely.
already been doing everything to, like, send client appreciation stuff and make sure she knows that we've got it covered, and even in a meeting when you've got that kind of confidence, the bride tends to be a little bit more trusting with you to take creative reins, which I know a lot of florists and a lot of people in the wedding industry just hunger for.
Yes.
But but when you have that confidence, they're just like, "Oh, I think I just trust you
They
with
just
that."
trust you. I'm so glad
Yeah.
you brought that up because I agree with you. That's something that I hear all the time. People going, I just want more creative control. I just want more creative control. The answer to getting the creative control is to gain the client's trust. And the way to gain the client's trust is the business behind the blooms process, which is beginning to end step by step in the program. I mean, just the exact emails to send, the templates to write, to have on hand, when to send things, what to have at the meeting. I mean, just all of it is just in there. And I also know that there's a lot of people who go, I don't like the sales process, or I don't feel confident in the sales process. Man, I guarantee you, after you go through this program and you implement the tools that are in there, you're going to feel differently about the sales process. I really do.
Because I mean, since I was a graphic designer, I've got a creative gene and I'm more of a laid back person. I don't have the sales gene, but the sales process gives you kind of a template and ideas of how to do that and how to be a good salesman for your business without it feeling like you're a salesman, and I don't wanna do that. I don't want to be pushy or anything to my bride, so the sales process was a really eye opener and very educational for me. So that and I think that is a big reason why the 80% growth
Yeah.
did happen because I had enough confidence to make the sale and to book the good weddings.
Mhm.
It's not that I wasn't seeing good weddings and good budgets before, maybe not as much, but but a lot of times I wasn't booking them because, if they get quotes from 3 other people and the other ones do better on that process, they're gonna move on. And I will tell you, fun fact or a fun little thing that happened a few weeks ago. We just booked our biggest wedding ever for next year,
Oh, yay.
which every time we you know, break a record, it's just kind of
It's so
solidifying. It's
exciting.
satisfying. Yeah. And it won't happen until I think it's spring or summer 2021. But it just got booked a few weeks ago. So there's no way that numbers that I'm seeing now and for next year would have happened without some kind of process in terms of sales.
Running a floral business isn't always as pretty as the flowers themselves. I spent more than $100,000 educating myself and figuring out how to make this business work for me and fully support my family of five. If you're wanting to know how to not only run a profitable business, but also hear all my firsthand experiences of navigating how to deal with difficult brides, make automated systems, create proposals, set boundaries in your work, and book every bride you want, you need to check out Business Behind the Blooms. Go to zimmermanpodcast.com/BBB to get more information. That's zimmermanpodcast.com/BBB. I was going to ask you, since BBB, have you just seen your numbers continue to grow? And yeah, hearing that, that's a definite yes. So that's awesome.
Yeah, and it really seems like of course, we had some cancellations and some not many cancellations, but some that postponed to 2021, and a lot of friends in the wedding industry are feeling like there is great potential for 2021.
Yes. Yes, that's such a good point. 2020 has been hard because of COVID. It really has. But it is true. I mean, now is the time. And I'm being completely serious about this. And I am a big believer, and I always have been, in utilizing your low season. And I believe right now you have got time to get these systems in place. If you can think about it, and if you can, implement the things that are in Business Behind the Blooms now, man, you are going to be ready for a killer year. You just are. It's going to be, I think you're right. I think there's going to be a boom for sure
Right. And
next
now
year.
is the time because we have to think 6 to 9 months in advance at least because that's
Absolutely.
what people are planning for weddings.
Yeah, totally.
Uh, so yes, we're very hopeful for that big boom for 2021.
It's going to happen. When you first got into Business Behind the Blooms, like you opened up the program, what about it captured your attention?
I think I probably read almost the entire thing. I think I stayed up until like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning just reading and just taking it all in. I wanted to implement everything, like, right this second, but I also wanted to get to the end, so I was like, "Oh, should I do that now or should I wait?" So I think definitely the way inquiries and I definitely felt an urgency to get those things started to kind of streamline my email process and my response process to my brides and quoting and proposals and all of that. Contracts, because if I'm meeting with a bride next week, I'm gonna have to give them a quote, and I'm gonna have to give them a proposal for the wedding, so and I was still receiving inquiries during the process of reading through BBB and implementing the changes, so it was really exciting for me to get those changes made just as fast as possible and start seeing, especially with the way I did proposals and the way I presented the quote, it massively changed from what I was doing before and really started out that mentality with my brides that, "Oh, she's got her stuff together. Oh, this looks good."
Yeah,
And, "Oh, this I can totally see it."
right.
So those things were very exciting to see almost instant results
Yeah, that's
with
so
the way
good.
brides reacted.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the way you did it is the way most people do it. I think they go into it thinking they're going to implement each module at a time, but they can't stop reading it, which I love. I love it because they're like they're finally getting the answers that they've always wondered, and so they just can't stop reading it. So they stay up, they read the whole thing,
Yeah.
and then they go back to module 1. They're like, "Okay, now I know all the answers. Now I'm gonna start implementing." And they start implementing one thing at a time.
Yes.
And so I love that. I love that. As you know, there's literally nothing that I hold back in Business Behind the Blooms. Did you feel like you were getting to see, like the inside of my business, to be a fly on the wall? Was it helpful to hear, stories of times I screwed up and what I
Yeah.
did to fix those mistakes? Like, was that good for you?
Yeah, because I lacked so much confidence at the beginning to even call myself a real business. I would say, "Oh, I do flowers on the side, side hobby." And at the point that I purchased BBB, That was 2018. I had gotten there. I had gotten to the point where I called myself a business owner, but kind of under my breath, I kinda
Right. Not that proudly.
I'm not a small business owner. I don't have a successful business. I
Right.
wasn't shouting that from the top
It
of
feels
the
phony. It feels a little phony.
Yeah, yeah, just because there was a lack of confidence. So to
Mhm.
hear and I wasn't surrounding myself by any other small business owners,
Mm.
and I wasn't making friends with people in the wedding industry in my area in Chattanooga, again, just because I lacked confidence. So the screw ups and the I can relate type of things, I wasn't getting that anywhere, which, you could probably get on social media or being friends with people in the industry if you really tried to make those connections, but I wasn't even doing that. So it definitely felt good to be like, okay, it really sounds like we can do this, like,
Right.
she's been there too. Yeah, that was very encouraging to hear the failures and to see that there was a process to move things in the right direction, yeah.
Yeah, I just think it's so important. I know that there are programs out there that just go straight to the, like, here's what to do. And for me, I never wanted to say, here's what to do. I wanted to share what I did. And, the same thing with my book, Sleeping with a Stranger. It was the same thing, just to share the experience. And I don't think that you can share the triumphs without sharing the struggles, because I also, like, on the flip side, if I'm reading something of someone else's and all they're telling me is this is what to do, this is what to do, I think, how do you know?
Right.
Like, how do you know? How can I trust you? Like, I get a little skeptical. And so I wish I could say it was some, like, great conscious decision, but it just wasn't. It was just the only way I knew how to share it.
Yeah.
Did you have a favorite or most helpful part of BBB?
Well, let me look. I've printed out all of the chapters.
I love it. I love it so much.
Gosh, I think the money guide for sure, because again, I shared that I was advertising myself as the affordable option, and so I cringed at feeling like I was gonna make more money than I should or was going to charge someone more than what they were wanting. Again, I just didn't have the confidence to or the knowledge to really know what I should be charging. I was just trying to, like,
Mhm.
kinda calculate some money for labor. I don't know. And I definitely was not covering any kind of real overhead for business expenses
Right.
because I was still in my mind, I was still thinking, "Oh, this is a side hobby. If I make this much per hour, I think I'm okay." But then when things would come up in my business as far as overhead, like paying for the domain for my website, I had no budget for that. I just had no clue, like,
Right.
where's that supposed to come from? But I didn't really have the knowledge to move past that without really being confident in how those numbers should shake out. And if I had a client who came to me with the desire to have a $5,000 wedding package and a $1,200 budget or something like that, I no longer felt like I've just got to figure out how to make her happy. I could say I had confidence now to say, mm,
That's just not gonna work.
numbers aren't shaking out. Let's either lower our expectation or I'll just
'Cause and I think that, yeah, part of that is teaching, which I used to not know, but teaching, like, okay, how much should I be pricing this bouquet? And out of that price, how much should I be spending at the wholesaler? Or, how much should I incorporate for ribbon and, pins or whatever, and labor and setup and delivery? Like, all of those things were such things that I wish for years that someone had just told me. So
and I back then, I'm sure people are gonna laugh at this fact, maybe some people do this or maybe they don't, but I was just paying myself the labor after I finished the wedding. So in, like, October, when there are tons of weddings, I was getting a big paycheck. But then in the downtime months like January, not a lot of people are getting getting married in January in Chattanooga.
Right.
I was just getting nothing, and I just had no idea how to change that. So,
Yeah.
that following year was definitely a year of a consistent salary, which I had no clue was the way things should be going.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that. I think that, you're probably not alone at all with that. And I don't know if you have the program Know Your Numbers or not, but with Know Your Numbers, you were mentioning earlier about, like, a hobby business and stuff, and what I love about Know Your Numbers is I teach us how to figure out, like, just, like, what do you need? You know, like, what do you and that really is you're able to kinda go, "Oh, okay, this is all I need, so that means I only need 4 weddings a year." And when you're able to look at it that way, then you're able to really go in with confidence, not having to say yes to everything,
Yeah.
but to pick the 4 best offers you get or whatever, and I think that really helps take the pressure off of feeling like, "Oh, I'm a hobby business." You can be like, "No, I'm a legit business. It's just I only do 4 businesses a year or 4 weddings a year because that's all I need." And so, I do love that program for that. What in your business looks different now? Like, other than the 80% growth, which I love. What looks different since going through Business Behind the Blooms?
Um, oh my gosh, everything. Everything. Okay, so before I was literally just using my Facebook page as a way to advertise because I wasn't taking myself seriously. I was like, I don't need like a real website. We were always called Lang Floral Designs, but I redesigned our logo, rebranded the website, and because I'm a graphic designer, I can do that on my own. So that's a little perk. I had that knowledge to rebrand a little bit. Everything about emails back and forth between clients has changed. When I go to set up for a wedding and when I am figuring out literally just the logistics to do a big wedding, it's no longer like a question of, "Oh my gosh, how am I gonna pay this team?" And I have kind of a strategy of how I'm working with a team. My team is not full-time because, again, I've said I don't even work the business full-time every week. So I have a contract for them, and I have confidence to give them the information, the correct, solid information for the wedding, and them be prepared and me be prepared. And before I don't even know what I was doing with the extra help with the team. I didn't it was a complete scramble if I needed extra hands. So that changed massively, just everything.
Yeah.
I could
Yeah.
talk all day
Oh, so
about that.
so good. And what about what in your personal life changed? Because I think for me, more than anything, I want people to be successful in their businesses, but I want them to be successful in their businesses so that they have more time
Mhm.
with the people
Yeah.
that matter most to them. So, what has changed about your personal life since you went through Business Behind the Blooms?
Well, I think, it would probably be easy to believe that with 80% growth, the following year, which was just last year, and this year is still growing, that I was just completely killing myself, and that with 80% growth came 80% growth in how much time I was spending on my business and how much free time I did not have. But I got done with last year. I mean, there are busy months. Fall here, fall weddings here are big and beautiful, and, there were months that were hard work, but I definitely finished out the year not feeling any more exhausted, not feeling any more taxed, actually feeling a lot more like, "Yeah, okay." Like, we saw that growth, we booked those good weddings, and we still achieved them without just completely dying because, again, I priced them right, and I knew how to with the money guide chapter, kind of how to quote them and how to move forward in a a better way, so I think before BBB, even with the bigger weddings that I was booking, I just was killing myself on labor. Just wasn't making enough to make it worth it, so I was killing myself for every dollar, really. So it just makes a big difference to know, like, there was growth, but I still am home with my children, not every day, but most days. They do a part-time childcare, so they're not in full-time childcare. It definitely was, super rewarding. We had a really big September and October last year. Definitely for about 4 or 5 weeks, we were just going hard, but they were weddings where I knew I priced
You
them
knew
right,
you
so
were
I
gonna have a great profit.
yeah, I was satisfied when we finished them because, 1, they were great styles that I loved because I
Yes.
felt confident to turn down some of the ones that were just not, and when we finished it, I was like, "Yes." I'm looking at
Yeah.
the numbers and, "Yes, this is good." And it was really rewarding. About a week after one of our big weddings, I was able to go on my son's field trip. They took, like, a hayride farm field trip
Yes.
in kindergarten, and so I remember going on that field trip and being like, "I can choose to do this. I
Right.
can choose to go during the day." And it's really easy when I've been in the corporate world, I've been in the full-time working world, and I'm in the business ownership world, and it's sometimes easy to look at it and think, "Would it be easier to just go back to the 9 to 5,
Oh, 100%.
make sure I have a steady paycheck,
Yeah.
the benefit, all of those things?" But that's not I woulda had to fight, depending on the job, I guess.
Mhm.
There are some things that I would have had to fight for to be able to do because I wanted to. And then a month later was his birthday. His birthday's in November, and I got to go and have lunch with him at school in the cafeteria, which was the first time I had ever done that really,
Aw.
'cause he's in kindergarten. I didn't really know you did that, but it was his birthday, so they told me, "Hey, a lot of parents do this." And he freaking loved it. Like, he was just buzzing all day because mom came to school. So
Yes.
just things like that are just hugely
Oh, that's
rewarding.
so good. That is so good. I was a guest on a podcast earlier this morning, and we were just talking about entrepreneurship and everything, and I said, I just even with, like, working for someone else, you just never know. Like, you could wake up tomorrow like, they're not gonna tell you everything that's going on, and so you could think that you're good at your job or you're in good standing, and then the next day they could fire you. You just never know, but by having your own business, like, I will gladly swap the moments of struggle or the days of long, hard work because I know that tomorrow I'll have a job. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I have a good friend who's kind of in that boat. Has just had a really good job for so many years, great benefits, so many good things about it, and there's been, like, a few changes in leadership, just
Yeah.
the supervisors and managers above him, and instantly things are night and day, and he's thinking about starting his own business because he's like,
Yeah.
there's writing on the walls that
Right.
I am not gonna be here in the future,
Mhm.
like and he's got a family, that and
Yeah.
he it was a sweet deal for a really long time and something to be thankful for, but just just like that,
Mhm.
it all changed. My husband was on the phone with him the other day, and, I was like, "What are you talking about?" I was so confused. I knew who he was talking about, and all I've ever known is just great managers, a great employer, great everything, and, uh, it just it changed very quickly.
Right. Definitely. What kind of relationship do you have with your business today?
I mean, I feel like I have complete control.
Yeah. Isn't that such a good place to be in?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, when it comes to your business, I mean, I know that's not healthy, like, in life all the time, although I do enjoy being in control, but that's just my own personal issues. But, I mean, in business, it is nice to know what's going on.
Well, and, it's 2020, we've had some unexpected things. There have
Yeah,
definitely been some hiccups, but to be able to change and adjust and go with the flow on the things I can control has been freeing, and 2 years ago, if I had cancellations or postponed weddings for another year, if I had some hiccups in the road a few years ago, we would have been in trouble. Like,
right.
we wouldn't have known where next week's groceries were coming from or this bill.
If you want to build a great business or live a good life, you've got to plan for it. Every year, I take a whole month to reevaluate the past 12 months and figure out what worked, what didn't, and how I can create a life I love for the following year. I teach you my exact planning process in my program, Know Your Numbers, annual planning for your best year. If you want a free training to get some tips on planning your best year yet, go to zimmermanpodcast.com/know your numbers. That's zimmermanpodcast.com/know your numbers. How do you think BBB changed your attitude or gave you the tools, to have to deal with COVID when a lot of weddings have been postponed?
Okay, so definitely the confidence in my contract and what legally I was doing to cover things before when COVID started happening and we were seeing what was going on. I knew I needed to talk to my lawyer and see what I needed to add to my contract. And so we've added a whole pandemic clause to the contract. It's nice and lengthy and so, gosh, I have no idea. I have no idea how I would have handled it contractually.
Because I do a whole module in Business Behind the Blooms about contracts.
Yes.
And I will say this, how I get y'all to read that is that I share some really dark stuff that happened to
Oh,
me.
good.
And I will never forget the day that a student reached out to me and she said, "The whole program, BBB, feels like I'm sitting down for coffee with my best friend and she's just sharing with me, and except the contract chapter." She's like, "The contract chapter feels like we are at a dark bar sitting in the corner with, like, whiskey on the rocks, and
Yeah.
you are, like, telling me things I probably shouldn't know." And I just love that because it's kinda true. I changed names, in it,
Oh,
but I
good.
did share, a couple stories in there because I just wanted y'all to, because I just know where I was before those stories happened to me, that I was like, I mean, contracts are important, but they're not like everything. I mean, like, it's okay. They don't have to be like,
Yeah, I was totally that way.
you know what I mean? It's like, as long as I sign something, it's fine. And it's like, no, no, no. So I do love that you got that too. And that you were like, okay, now let me go check in with my attorney on that.
And like I said, we've had some hiccups along the road, but I feel really confident in the fact that I've discussed things with her and I have a plan moving forward. And it's not to kill my brides. It's the pandemic clause is actually very flexible, and I ended up having to send out new contracts to even my existing clients to say, "Hey, guess what? Your contract before said this, but we're being actually much more flexible if you need to postpone in this new
Mhm.
clause." And so I sent that out and it was hilarious. Immediately like within the hour, brides would sign it and send it back because they wanted to get that in. Because and I've heard just so many stories from my brides who have had to postpone that, some venues and some vendors are just not treating some are just real flexible, they'll let them do anything, and almost too flexible, they're just letting brides run all over them without any kind of, process and standard. My mind would have never been able to figure that out without knowing, "Okay, this is definitely something that I need to reach out to a lawyer for," and all she had to do is write a clause to add to my contract so that I knew and they knew and we all knew how things would go.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. If you knew someone who was on the fence about this, about purchasing Business Behind the Blooms, because it is an investment, what would you tell them?
So, if you start that payment plan in September, think about the majority of your payments will be happening in 2021, right? I mean, really you only have to pay for a couple of months until, in my opinion, you'll start seeing a benefit to the bottom line. And so I feel like Business Behind the Blooms gives you lots of resources from the money guide chapter and the pricing sections and all of that to start taking control back with your finances. So for me, those first few months were a little scary because I was like, again, I didn't incorporate anything for overhead education, like, there was no budget for that, I just didn't know. But once you start implementing the changes from Business Behind the Blooms, those will start showing you more profit in your business in 2021 to where you can look at 2021 as a year as a whole and know that there is a budget to pay those monthly payments and to cover that. And there's a budget because you're booking more weddings, you're not more weddings, better weddings, bigger clients, the right clients, the ones that are gonna not suck you completely dry. So just from a financial standpoint, 2021, if you buy Business Behind the Blooms, will look different for you. I'm sure of it. I mean, if you implement the changes, it will look different for you. And like we've already talked about, everyone in the wedding industry is very hopeful that 2021 is going to be huge potential. So if you can think about, I mean, maybe just one or two weddings, it would only be one or two weddings difference to to have just some really great profit, and it would cover the cost of your monthly payment plan for Business Behind the Blooms. It's a big commitment to bet on yourself and your business for something more than $100 or something,
Mhm.
It's a big decision, but, I really feel like by next year, when you're making the majority of your payments, it'll just be a no-brainer, and it really was for me. The majority of my payments were coming out in 2019, about half 2018, half 2019, and it was just something we budgeted for, and it was not hurtful. Like, it wasn't painful to see those payments come out every month because by the time I started implementing the changes, it was like, "Yeah, this is what we're doing." There's money in overhead for education and for all the other things that a business needs. So,
Oh, that's great. Oh, thank you so much. This has been, I really appreciate you coming on here and sharing your story and your experience with Business Behind the Blooms. I want to ask you one final question. If you had Oprah's money, I always think this is fun because you have to answer it selfishly. And we as women, we immediately want to go to helping other people, but this is selfish. If you had Oprah's money and you had to buy something totally selfish, what would you spend it on?
okay, I've heard you ask this question to your other podcast interviewers. I'm so excited to answer for myself.
Oh, good, good, good.
I would go on just the most lavish vacation. I would take my husband because I like spending time with him, but I would leave my kids with the grandparents or family or something. We would do like I'm a beach person, but going to the beach on a budget is not quite as exciting as it would be if you went to like one of those villas that had like the glass floor over water thing, just luxury,
Yes,
nonstop spa treatments and massages and
a
room
chef.
service, just
Oh,
I would be reckless because
I
and
love
this
it.
is maybe just my emotional state at the
State.
point we all need a vacation. We all need
Yes,
to get away from our kids for a few minutes.
yes.
I think that would probably be my answer regardless of, where we were, but, man, I would do some just luxury trips where I could really just have the quality time and just the reckless luxury
That is so
for me and
good.
my husband.
Oh, that's such a good answer. Thank you so much for answering that, and thank you so much for being a guest on the
Thank
podcast.
you
I
for
just
having me.
Yes, absolutely. Where can everyone find you?
Okay, so on Instagram, I'm just at langfloraldesigns.com, and it's Lang. Facebook, you just search Lang Floral Designs, and online, I'm langfloraldesigns.com.
Perfect. So good. Well, thank you again for being here. I have just really enjoyed talking with you.
You too. Thanks.
I love how practical Stephanie is about BBB. When it comes down to it, Stephanie has seen 80% growth since taking the Business Behind the Blooms, earning back what she spent on the course over and over again. With monthly payment plans and a strong business foundation, you can budget for things like education, which in most places is tax deductible. Now is the time to prepare for where you want to be 6, 12 months from now. If you want to learn more about Business Behind the Blooms, go to zimmermanpodcast.com/BBB. That's zimmermanpodcast.com/BBB. BBB. Thanks so much for sharing your story, Stephanie. It was such a treat having a bloomer on the podcast.
If you loved what you heard today, even if you liked it a lot, you should subscribe and leave a review. We'll see you back here next time in the Zimmerman podcast.